causes.
Hang on.
Ooh.
Let's go. Oh, sorry. It's my fault. Start again, would you?
This is Let's Talk.
Yes, it is.
We're getting to the root causes of the important issues of the day. This on-the-air community forum believes your voice matters, and we welcome all thoughts and views without judgment. Please join today's conversation by calling 663-8492.
Yes. Or 8317 if the other line is busy. And I'm Paul Raffel. That was Stephen Hurwitz. And we are also joined
Shelley
by
Rugg.
co-host Shelley Rugg. Charles Schultz not in attendance today. Other things happening today for Charles.
Lecturing in Oxford.
Exactly. Yes, browbeating someone, I'm sure. But anyway. So today, why did I choose this topic? Good question.
Yeah.
The topic is authoritarianism. Oh, dearos. I was looking around at what's happening here and around the world, and that we seem to have the human race seems to have this fascination, perhaps even a desire to be ruled by authoritarian government. And it seems to be coming here. It feels that way. Things are getting more and more centralized, shall we say, taken out of the hands of, well, I don't know, is that true? Taken out of the hands of the people. Maybe that isn't true. Maybe it's just that the people want to be told what to do by a strong leader, which is usually a euphemism for
Dictator?
You know, like Duterte in the Philippines.
I was just thinking of Duterte.
Strong leader, as he was called by our president. Oh, he's a very strong leader. He has some good ideas on
unclean hands.
The dictator talk.
Oh, yes.
And I think he's one of the first people that called Trump to congratulate him.
He was. Yeah. Yes. The Philippines has a pretty bad history. I mean,
and the United States, we won't talk about
Philippines.
We won't talk about.
So, does religion go hand in hand with authoritarianism?
Well, now there's a question. I think it seems to be one of the common threads, except in communist countries.
Okay.
Where they create the nation as a religion, right?
Yeah. I wrote something that I called The Road to Authoritarian Government.
Oh.
And if we have the time, I'll read some of these.
Of course.
Okay, I say undermine the press, undermine or control the courts, control law enforcement, support of the bankers and corporate leaders, narrow the divide between civil leadership and military, perpetrate the big lie, cult of personality, scapegoating.
What's the big lie?
Well, the big lie comes from Hitler, but in this case, the big lie I think is that America in some way was a great country. We've lost our way, and now we're going to make America great again.
Okay.
I think that there are a number of big lies, but that one occurs to me. Idealism and nostalgia. That's another one that go with that. Scapegoating, obviously, and a network of informants and disintegration of privacy. That's happening on its own without anything else. So, yeah.
So there's nostalgia for a time when we could own people, when women had no rights, things like that?
No, that's not. I mean,
no?
Paul was agreeing.
I'm certainly nostalgic for that.
Uh-oh.
Well, that is a common thread, too, in authoritarianism, in fascism, and in other authoritarian forms of government, is that women tend to be downgraded again, that they have to go back to the home and have their traditional role.
Make
right?
America great again.
Yeah, I mean, it's, you know, unless they're really good looking, unless
The
they're,
50s.
you know,
Well, you know, if you
then they can be on camera
Well,
and
you know.
represent us.
Or
Yeah.
if they have a wonky eye. I mean, you know, they're not all good looking.
Wonky eye.
I'm not going to. Okay, that was
I've
rude.
I've never heard that wonky eye.
Wonky eye.
Somebody might get
Does
it.
that
but
come from where you grew up? Is that like a
Wonky?
local?
I don't know where wonky came. Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, probably.
But, well, that's a fair enough list, I'd say. And are you checking them off as regards the U.S.?
Yes, I could check undermine the press for sure.
Yeah.
That was one of the first things. Control law enforcement, I think our president was very when he discovered that the head of the FBI did not owe him loyalty and that the Justice Department was not a branch of the presidency. I think these were big disappointments to the president.
Yeah, he's used to being a businessman and being on top and in charge and making all decisions.
Being a
Authoritarianism.
strong man
Yeah.
in his,
So
his
strong.
world, yes.
Yeah.
He couldn't have been better, believe me. He was, yes, a great businessman, probably the best businessman ever, and now he's the best president we could ever have.
And he's really good with
And,
words.
And so what's wrong with that? Right? I mean, this is what, obviously, there's a large segment of the population,
Well, it sounds like that's
certainly
the big
voting
lie.
population, that want this, that want him to have
Well, do you think
more
that
power.
do you think he has a cult of personality? I think that's an important ingredient. I don't think he's got that. I think he wants to, but I think that there's only a small group of people who drank the Kool-Aid.
Really?
And they're all in power.
Congress?
The Congress, I'm, just speculating. By the way, this is not me speaking authoritatively about something I know nothing about.
Well, we're just giving impressions here. If you have any impressions, listeners, do call in 415-663-8492. Let's see. Here's what Hannah Arendt, famously during the Second World War, she was a refugee from Germany, I think, Austria, Germany. And she covered the trial of Eichmann in Israel. And
An early Zionist who later in her life repudiated her former views.
when it became another authoritarian government. She, far from being a thing of the past, she believed that totalitarianism, which is a form of totalitarianism, everything is under the sway of the government. Everything you think and believe is, that's 1984 stuff. Totalitarianism heralds as a possible model for the future. The culture of traditionalism, an ever-present culture of fear, the corporatization of civil society, the capture of state power by corporations, the destruction of public goods, corporate control of the media, survival of the fittest ethos, dismantling of civil and political rights, ongoing militarization of society, religionization of politics, rampant sexism, attacks on labor, an obsession with national security, human rights abuses, the emergence of the police state. Oh, dear. Yes, and I think we can gradually be ticking these off. And it's not just now. It's not just in the past year. It's been there for a long time. It was certainly...
a little more underground.
House Un-American Activities Committee, remember that? No, none of us remembers that.
Oh, yes, no, but I don't remember it personally. But it's interesting that McCarthy basically went away when people stopped supporting him and condemning him. So, as long as, like you say, good people stand aside and let things happen, as soon as people decided he'd done enough. He had to go away. And but interestingly,
but unfortunately, Roy Cohn.
I was going to just mention Roy Cohn. He moved bosses over to our fearless leader,
about the lizard people, Roy Cohn.
And somewhere I heard Trump ranted, "Where's my Roy Cohn?"
All right. Oh dear. Do we know?
I have
Roy Cohn?
ignorance.
Roy Cohn was the attorney for McCarthy, I believe.
Very ruthless, very
anti-gay.
He was one of the
extremely homosexual, anti-homosexual.
Who was gay himself.
Turned out he was gay himself.
Really?
Of course.
Absolutely.
Died of AIDS.
Died
of AIDS.
He was having. Oh, never mind.
And he was a mentor to Donald Trump.
That's right.
Really?
Yeah. So, yes. Strong leadership.
Well, I think so many of the things that Hannah outlined definitely have come to pass. But, one thing that occurs to me, one of the most frightening things about ICE is that they could be a model for that emerges beyond immigration. I think that's pretty scary, the fact that they're... And I'll tell you something that... Here, I must sound on the air like I'm paranoid or Mr. I'm always thinking...
And he's heavily armed, folks. He's open carry.
Well, that's what I was just going to say that if you have a rebellion, it may be a point, given the way things are today, that the government stands down. And I don't think that's ever happened before, beginning with the Whiskey Rebellion.
Tell us about it.
Yeah, what are you talking about?
That was an early rebellion at the very beginning of the United States, and George Washington set in the troops and put it down. So
they're trying to tax whiskey or something, right? Trying to take it away. Don't touch my whiskey, man. That's what I say. So they put it down. They put the rebellion down.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, certainly, if there were any thought of an armed uprising against the U.S. government, it would be a hard slog.
Well, it is sort of interesting
impossibility.
When you think about how much
the firepower the police departments have now.
Our government right now is saying everyone needs guns, at least teachers, right? Another ridiculous thing. I mean, and so what if everybody in America had guns and we're all shooting each other in the streets, or the police come and we shoot the police? I mean, what's the deal, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I grew up with gun smoke. At least people had to hang their guns before they went into a bar, if you recall.
Well, interestingly enough, I just read this article today. There are 5 places where Republicans will not allow guns.
At one of their meetings.
White House, Republican conventions, no guns. The White House, of course, but surrounded by arms, so that's okay. Senate building, the Congress as well. Anyway, anywhere that Republicans actually gather in large numbers, they don't want anyone to have guns.
Software games, softball games.
The same holds true for teachers. I mean, you arm teachers. I mean, sometimes things get hostile between teachers and students.
Yes. And teachers are only human after all.
Right.
And can have bad moments.
Right. They can. It happens all the time.
Well, you could have students.
There can also be accidents.
If you keep guns away if you allow them on campus, you could have college students that are open carry to class.
Yeah.
That would be interesting.
And let's just hope they're the good guys with guns.
Oh,
but
so another subject.
So then the fear that the NRA puts into its members is that authoritarianism is coming. Right. The government's coming to take away your guns,
and that's why we all need them.
And yet they also like the idea of authoritarianism. I think.
What a great way to market.
So you're saying there's sort of a contradiction?
Yeah, I think they're certainly not all gun owners are for Trump, but I would say that there's a certain percentage of them who are both for as many guns as you can own and no limitations, and they're also, because the government is going to come and take them away, but they're also for a government run by someone who's authoritarian, because that's kind of the mindset that you will need someone. You need a commander, someone who they're always calling him the commander in chief now.
Well, there's supposed to be a separation.
You want someone who's going to tell you what to do. You want to
take charge.
You want it's like God. God is supposed to be this all-seeing, all-wise, and He's going to tell us all what to do. It's like
we're talking about
Daddy.
that. One of the first things that Trump did was to blur this line between the military and the civil by.
Well, yeah, carry on.
No, you were
by
about
what?
to say. By inviting these guys into the White House as part of his team. And in some sense, I don't think he went through this, but saying, hey, you guys, you know more than I do. Go do it. So it was maybe delegating authority for decision-making to the military itself, if I recall.
Oh, I see. Yeah. Yeah, a lot of generals in the cabinet, some of whom have left, of course, among all the others.
Yeah.
But the militarization of the police was happening during Obama's time. That's when the Pentagon had all these leftover armaments and tanks and armored vehicles, and said, "Hey, let's arm police forces as if they're the military now." And so here we are. So there's all those. That's all in place for readiness for an authoritarian government.
Yeah, it seems like for people who want Donald Trump in the helm is because of the American dream that anybody can rise up and make millions someday. If they just stick to it and work hard and, although that's not necessarily the story of Donald Trump, but he presents it as if it is.
Right.
And people just take it in and believe it, and they don't look into it. And so they just see him as, he made it big and he must be doing something right.
Yes, of course. Well, and let me just make it clear, this is not just about Donald Trump. I mean, he just happens to be the president right now. And as I said in the blurb I sent out, it's a long line of sort of oligarchic rule that we've actually had. We like to call it democracy, but really it's never been based on one person, one vote.
Well,
certainly
Putin
not
is
as far as women were concerned.
When you talk about the rule by the oligarchy, Putin is he's an example that comes to my mind. The oligarchy exists through his largesse, and obviously gets his. In fact, I think that I think these guys are just really holding the bag for him in many ways. Who, by the way, is greatly admired by whose name we shall not mention.
I think we already did. He admires what they used to call strongmen, like the every dictator in Panama was always a strong man. And we'd take him down every so often, and then
especially if they mention the C word.
Yeah, and then we put someone else in there, and if he didn't behave, we'd go in and take him out as well. Yeah, see, we have a tradition of a long chain of government that is gradually working towards this, as far as I can tell. There was the Second World War, of course, was a fight against totalitarianism, and the Cold War was certainly a fight against totalitarianism.
Quite
we
right.
We were all imbued with that we were fighting the good fight, and that everyone on our side was good, and that everyone over there was either slaves or were bad people. Then it all went away. And now we have, refugees, we have Syrians, we have... Anyway, there's always somebody that you can make out to be
the bad guy,
the terrible enemy that we're all supposed to be united against.
Mm-hmm.
And it's become more and more nebulous. It's just vaguely sort of terrorism now.
Well, I wouldn't say that we are in the state of having an authoritarian government, but I think that we all the ingredients are put in place. They haven't matured yet, but the seeds have been planted.
And to your point about the people, just ordinary people, and you were talking about ICE. Well, here's an article. This is actually one of the articles that spurred this topic this week. It was quite well written in the Baltimore Sun, and it starts out, "A week ago, men and women went to work at airports around the U.S. as they always do. They showered, got dressed, ate breakfast, perhaps dropped off their kids at school. Then they reported to their jobs as federal government employees, where, according to news reports, one of them handcuffed a 5-year-old child, separated him from his mother, and detained him alone for several hours at Dulles Airport."
For?
Because he was not a citizen, I think. At least one other federal employee at Dulles reportedly detained a woman who was traveling with her 2 children, both U.S. citizens, the children were U.S. citizens, for 20 hours without food. A relative says the mother was handcuffed and threatened with deportation to Somalia. At Kennedy Airport, other federal employees detained and handcuffed a 65-year-old woman traveling from Qatar to visit her son, who is a U.S. citizen and serviceman stationed at Fort Bragg, North Carolina. The woman was held for more than 33 hours, according to the New York Times, and denied use of a wheelchair. The men and women who work for the federal government completed these and other tasks and then returned to their families, where perhaps they had dinner and read stories to their children before bedtime.
Oh my gosh.
This is how authoritarianism takes hold, right? They're just doing their jobs. They're just trying to feed their families. They're just trying to do everything they're told to do to keep the country running according to the way it's supposed to run, according to what is in the manual.
And someone knows better. That's what it is. It's that someone knows better, that they think someone knows better. And so added to the religious aspect is education, if you don't have enough education to sort this all out, it's easy to start to think that somebody might know better because you don't know, enough to even investigate.
Isn't that, I keep thinking about the structure of the family. Isn't that really part of the family? Wasn't Robin talking about, I think she was talking to me about down there in Alabama, that this business of courting young girls is not unusual, where good Christian families seek older men for their daughters, so that essentially they never really enter the outside world. They go from high school to an authoritarian family where their husband is older, understands what's good, so they really never break out.
Interesting.
I suppose, the interesting thing is not, to me, talking about Alabama, is not that the election went the way it did, but that many people, 50% of the voters, voted for Roy Moore. I find that shocking.
He's a strong man, right? I mean, he is an authoritarian figure. He may not have the charisma that I guess Trump must have charisma for a lot of people, but you have to, Roy Moore perhaps didn't have it enough, so he got voted out. But he's still there. He's still, no doubt, churning things up. But he's an authoritarian figure, especially when he's on stage wearing a sheriff's badge and waving a little gun around. It's just what we love to see.
Do we?
Well, apparently
half the people,
a lot of people do.
Half the voters in Alabama do.
Anyway, this is KWMR 90.5, Point Reyes Station, 89.9 in Bolinas, 92.3 in the San Geronimo Valley, streaming live on kwmr.org. And KWMR is underwritten by the 2018 Geography of Hope Conference, Finding Resilience in Nature in Perilous Times, March 17th and 18th in Point Reyes Station. The conference uses nature as a touchstone to build resilience during times of political, social, and environmental upheaval. Tickets at gohconference.org. And you can reach your neighbors and support local radio in one fell swoop. Information about becoming an underwriter is available by emailing Mia at kwmr.org or by calling KWMR at 415-663-8068, extension 106. And one of our underwriters is To Celebrate Life. To Celebrate Life Breast Cancer Foundation, raising funds to help underserved women and men living with breast cancer. Through its Bay Area Breast Cancer Grants program, the foundation supports nonprofits that provide direct and emergency services and believes that no one should face breast cancer alone. Information about how to get involved is available at tocelebratelife.org. And this is Let's Talk Call-In Radio. Give us a call, won't you? We're talking about authoritarianism. Is it possible that the U.S. could become not a dictatorship, perhaps, an autocracy, perhaps, an oligarchy?
I think we've already reached that point.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think so. I really think that Congress are employees. They're doing what they've been paid to do, essentially, and that's just my studied opinion.
Well, isn't that what employees do? I mean,
that's right.
Yeah.
And if they don't follow their instructions, then they're replaced. And the oligarchy has where they send their money, that's who gets elected.
Yeah, the threat of job loss influences a lot of people's decisions.
Of course.
It's the structure, though. As soon as a representative is elected, because of the election cycle, one of his chief duties is to get money together again for the next one. So part of the process is a continual fundraising. Yeah,
I heard on radio yesterday somebody talking about this. We're in the presidential election cycle. I go,
2020.
Wait a minute.
2020.
It's only 2018. Come on. Anyway, yeah, well, that is how it is. And there is an example. I mean, it's all about getting enough money that you can actually run and stage a campaign, right? I mean, there's one of the check items on your checklist there is corporate money.
Yeah.
And that's basically fascism when corporations and the lobbyists that are in Washington that write laws, they write the laws themselves and just hand them to a congressman or a senator.
That's right.
Here you go. Right. This is what we're going for.
I remember that.
Okay.
Well, interestingly, though, talking about the power of money, I can't remember his name, but a major donor to the Republican Party just came out and said nobody gets money from me until they reform weapons, until they put some kind of weapons control. He says, I'm not giving another dollar. And it's a beginning.
Okay.
This is a guy that finances these guys.
Yeah, but even that, I mean, that doesn't make it better, right? It's still his money. He's threatening to pull corporate money, his money, out of politics. Well, yeah, it's great that he's pulling money out of politics, but just because he happens to be pulling it out because of one thing, he wants legislation to happen, that's what they're all doing. It just happens that in this case it's something that we might be more sympathetic to, but that's the kind of influence they have. It's the same game, exactly.
Yeah.
Do something good, or I'll take my money away.
Do I owe it to Charles that I should talk about the authoritarianism of West Marin?
Of course. I'm sure he's listening on his car
friends
radio.
in Inverness. Charles, call in, will you? Defend yourself.
Yeah, and it was kind of got me thinking when I started thinking about this and dictatorships. It's always been this thing where we think of dictatorships as being somewhere else, right? I mean, it's always, third world countries, you know. It's like, and sure enough, Belarus, wow. I went to Minsk. I didn't know that was the capital of Belarus. Good heavens. Cambodia, Cameroon, Chad, China, Cuba, Egypt, Equatorial Guinea. It just goes on and on. There's just country after country. I don't know how many countries are actually run as under a system where one guy has sort of absolute power. But there's a list of 40. It just keeps on going. I keep scrolling down. It just keeps on reloading.
I think war also is a great way to maintain, to get power. When people under the pressure of war, they need this leader to take control.
And the leaders, these guys, all these countries, I mean, most of them have leaders who dress in uniforms. And somebody said, when you see our president coming out in a uniform, you'll know that you'll know that's a turning point, because they need to have the military on their sides in all these places, because they cannot run the country. Even a charismatic dictator cannot run anything without the pyramid of power below him, right? And that's always the second tier is always the military.
If you took a look at the map of the Middle East, and we ask ourselves, which has pretty much been in conflict for maybe generations, really. If we look at that and we ask ourselves, is there any representative government there? Is there any government that we would not call authoritarian?
Let's see. Tunisia, Syria, Sudan,
Egypt,
Libya,
Gaza,
Libya,
Hamas took over Gaza.
Iran. Yeah. Jordan, well, that's a kingdom. There you go. Saudi Arabia, kingdom.
Yeah.
That's autocracies. That's authoritarian government. Not like England, jolly old England, of course. Britain, where they have a constitutional monarchy. And, good heavens, sure right. Somebody's crawling on the floor out there.
Doing some yoga.
Monarchies, of course, are it's what the revolution here was fought against, that one man should have that much power over everyone. How dare he? And yet we're inching towards it. Could it ever happen here? I mean, really? Give us a call if you... Either way, if you think it could or if you think it couldn't. If not, why not? What do you think is the power that we have to resist autocracy?
Well, a little info, if I might, about ICE, the impending ICE raids, that it would be great for people to know what their rights are.
Oh, yeah.
So just a couple of important tips. One is the only question you really have to answer is your name. You don't have to tell them where you came from or whether you moved, whether you're a citizen. You don't have to tell them any of that. Good to have a lawyer's phone number in your pocket at all times so that you can say, I'd like a lawyer, and you have a number you can call. And if they're knocking at your door, you don't have to let them in, with the exception of if they have a warrant that is actually signed by a judge and it has the person's name and address, correct name and address on the document. Sometimes ICE waves paperwork around and can scare people into thinking they must open their door or something terrible is going to happen. But if you look at the document and it doesn't have your name on it, you do not have to let those people in. And Westmoreland Community Services has more information about all of this. They have some brochures and some cards that you can carry, one side English, one side Spanish, that you can actually hand to a nice officer detailing your rights.
Very good.
Mm-hmm.
Good to know.
Yeah.
Here's something, just for Charles's sake. I'll talk about Plato. He was no fan of democracy, by the way, but he argued in the Republic that democratic states are destined to collapse into tyranny.
Why?
Max Weber. It's just the way they devolve, because as we see, populism goes hand in hand, unfortunately, with nationalism, and nationalism breeds authoritarianism, and so you go up that thing. When you give normal people, everyday people, the vote, this is what happens. That in hard times, a charismatic, strong-looking leader comes along, and everyone goes, "Oh, he can save us from our hard times.
Of our ways, yes.
Make us all great again." Max Weber, early 20th century, developed the concept of charismatic authority, a certain quality of an individual personality by virtue of which he is set apart from ordinary men and treated as endowed with supernatural, superhuman, or at least specifically exceptional powers or qualities. And Sigmund Freud, the ego ideal, mental representation of one's guiding values. In taking the place of their ego ideal, the authoritarian leader becomes the conscience of his followers, and his voice becomes the voice of their conscience. Whatever the leader wills is, by definition, good and right. And of course, that's what happened in Germany. As this charismatic leader, supported by thousands and thousands of thugs and military and everybody else, he became good and right. He was the voice of the people in hard times. They were undergoing hard times.
I wonder if that's one of these ingredients, hard times, or some. Trump keeps saying about he keeps mentioning the coal miners. What is this? A government structured around saving coal miners, for crying out loud?
Well, it's
somebody's in his back pocket.
Well, it's a basic sort of it's the ultimate sort of working class job, right? Going down a hole in the ground, digging out coal with basically physically and bringing it up to the surface. It's hard labor.
It hurts your
and
house.
It's two whole states are founded on it, based their economies on it. It's just a touchstone, right? I mean, he doesn't know anything about coal. He doesn't care about coal. It's about having somebody told him, "Oh, this would be a good one to go to."
It's a way to connect.
Go to West Virginia and talk about coal, and you're going to bring it back, and there'll be rousing cheers. That's all he wants.
So you're saying they're just representative of somebody hears coal miner and they say, "Yeah, I'm just like that."
Yeah, he could have gone to Flint, Michigan, and said, "We're going to bring cars back. We're going to bring the auto industry back to Flint." He didn't do that, but no, it just became a thing. And it's also, energy companies don't want alternative energies. They want what's already here. They want fossil fuels. That's a fossil fuel. So, but yeah, it's a whole mix of things, and it became something that he could remember to say. We now know that everything he says in public is either scattered and coming from deep within him, or he has it written down, "I hear you."
I saw that, yeah.
So the wall plays what part?
Scripted
the
empathy.
Scapegoating.
Oh, absolutely.
These are
they're
the
enemy.
problem.
Yeah, people people swarming over our borders. Well, that border anyway. Let's not forget we have thousands of miles of coastline that anyone can basically come into. But as long as we have the wall on that border, we'll keep out all those terrible immigrants coming in, stealing our jobs. It's a common refrain. I mean, that is the basic refrain of every authoritarian government.
Well, as jobs have decreased, the availability of jobs, actually there have been, people who've gone back to Mexico. It's stable now. The number of people that are leaving is equal to the number of people that are coming. So it's really not the case that we're being swarmed.
No. Well, there are millions. Was it 11 million coming in? Something like that. Anyway, he just throws figures around. No, of course. And farmers, growers everywhere, especially the big ag, are shouting now because they're finding it hard to get workers, of course. And,
one of the things I think, at least I wrote on mine, is this disintegration of privacy. And I think that, we're more and more coming to the point of there's no privacy anymore. If you know somebody's mother's maiden name, where they were born, their birthday, you can almost get into anything. I go to the doctor, and it's all structured around my birthday. When were you born? Oh, okay. Let me look you up.
Really?
You haven't experienced that?
No.
Oh, yeah.
Where is this?
In the medical world, physicians structure around your birthday.
Huh.
Yeah, I've had that happen to me over numerous times.
It's true, I guess. Well, it's a method of double-checking your identity, right?
Well, like I said, if you know somebody's mother's maiden name, social security number, birthday, these are,
Right.
The basics, yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, so key sources.
Right?
Yeah.
And they're all in a database somewhere.
Not to mention that everything that you type into the internet is retrievable. And careful what you say because employers are going to check and see what you've done on social media.
Yeah, it never goes away. Yes, be careful now. But we have the makings for the Big Brother right there. Smart TVs, apparently, if you never unplug them, they're always on, and they're actually monitoring speech, and I don't know if they're actually cameras are on, but apparently there's some way that some smart TVs are able to listen in on your house because they're always on.
They can even watch you from your computer.
Well, there you go. So, that's true. They can turn on cameras remotely.
You're being watched right now.
In your phone and in your computer, probably. But, so Big Brother, 1984, there it is. We're already there. The mechanisms
we should just all get naked. Maybe they'll stop looking.
Well, now. Please, put your clothes back on, Shelley.
Hey,
what the heck?
This is the conspiracy hour.
Well, no, but it is in place, right? I mean, that was the big thing about 1984 was the screen in the room that came on. Big Brother would tell you the latest news about who we were at war with now.
Right.
And we weren't at war with them yesterday, but we've always been enemies. Oh, that's right. But, rewriting of history, that certainly happens. So, I don't know, a slow decline. Maybe Plato was right that democracies are doomed to tyranny. Or, let's look on the bright side. This is America, damn it.
Well, let's look on the bright side. There, it's bright out there. It is. It's not all darkness, doom and gloom. And I think that the interesting thing that's happening right now is the rise in power of, say, the Tea Party was that they were all surrounded by this cause. And I think that Trumpism has given us a cause.
Yes, well, that's
yeah.
true. And that's where the internet is powerful. I mean, it's also a database that's taking information from us at all times. But hello, caller. You are on the air. What's your name, please?
My name is David.
David Clarkson. Hello, sir.
Yeah. Oh. Now I'm no longer anonymous.
Oh, no. Big Brother's watching.
Whoa. Okay. Well, I've listened in a little on and off to your discussion because I've had lots of interruptions, which is a good thing mostly.
That's got to stop.
Right. Well, I put a lock on the door saying go away. Democracy in various chunks of the world seems to be on the wane. Mm-hmm. I just read an article about Poland. I've been reading about Hungary. The countries that were part of the greater Soviet, greater or whatever you want, Soviet Union, are not. I guess democracy is not as powerful a force as it has been here. And then there's Duterte, and there's stuff going on in South America with various dictators. And I look at what's happening here with maybe not terror, but with great, great concern. I don't know how to stop it.
No.
But I just happened to start corresponding with a man early in the correspondence, but as part of a health group that I'm part of. A man he lives in Arkansas, about 5 miles from the border of Louisiana. He says he lives in a small town, and everybody literally is armed. Haven't gotten into what arms yet, but I'm sure we can imagine that some of them are not little plunky squirt shooter guns. It ain't good. And I think Trump's base is a lot bigger than Stephen. You said it was very small before. I mean, 35%. He's got a 35% approval rating, and he's got Congress in his pocket, and a lot of people support the people in Congress who support Trump. I mean, Mitt Romney is now coming around and saying, "Yeah, well, I don't know what we can do business," or
yep.
I don't know what the phrase is, but West Marin, we're still loving and lovely and all that stuff, but it ain't happening in a lot of the country.
Yeah. Well, so and the business of arming oneself is usually it's all about rising up against a tyrannical, overpowering government, right?
David, do you think we should start arming ourselves defensively?
David. Oh, is he?
David, yeah, I wondered.
Yeah. Wait, what was the question?
The question is, do you think we should start arming ourselves? Given the fact that, like you say, there is a strong conservative or alt-right voice out there, people who are armed, maybe we need to defend ourselves.
It's crossed my mind.
Me too.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, I haven't done it yet, but I've talked to lots of people who are armed. Whether. I mean, me having a weapon would not have stopped me getting robbed because I would have had a weapon on my hip and a gun at my chest with my hands immobilized. Well, what good's a gun then? But just because you have a gun doesn't mean that you're safe. Yes,
and there's a large statistic of people who are shot during a robbery or whatever. They're shot with their own weapon.
Yeah.
Gross.
Yeah, not to mention, kids getting their hands on guns and shooting their own parent or their brother.
Does that ever happen, really?
Accidentally.
No, I think that these guys that do the school murders, the first person they get is their mother.
Well, anyway, back to the cheery subject of
Well, I like to think it's cheery in that hopefully it'll get those of us who see the writing on the wall to really rise up for a change and come together, as an alternative force.
Putting your hope in the voting process, in the democratic process.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Trump, he said, if I had lost the last election, I would have contested it. So, we'd still be in the Supreme Court now without a president.
Yeah.
I mean, if I lose, it's invalid. It's fake news.
Right.
Now around the world, a lot of the dictators are talking about fake news.
Yeah.
So it's a phrase that's on the ascendancy, and that's one of the things. Now, undermining freedom of the press, and then undermining the court system.
Yeah.
The Republicans literally stole a Supreme Court seat from the American people.
We're almost out. We're about 3 minutes out, and I'd like to continue the subject. Is it possible for us to take over the next hour?
Certainly not. A new school at Commonwealth.
I thought you were going to say, "Can we take over the world?"
No, just an hour at a time.
Yeah.
We'll take over the studio. That's the first thing that revolutions do, is take over the radio station.
I'll be standing outside with bandoleros.
we know better. See.
Thank you, David.
Thank you all.
Thanks for calling.
Bye.
Ciao.
Bye.
Oh, that was nice. Well, thank you both.
Thank you, Paul.
And KWMR does not take a stand on any of the issues discussed on Let's Talk. Opinions expressed on this program are those of the hosts and callers and don't necessarily reflect the views of KWMR, its board of directors, underwriters, or members. Yes, have faith in the democratic process, and keep an eye open, and just know that we all hope we can make a difference. I mean, yes, can we make a difference? Of course we can. Here we go.